Prick up your ears.
The sound of DTM.
My car sounds like music to my ears.
My favorite sound when the car is leaving the pits.
My favorite sound, the cheering of the fans.
Crank it up. My favorite sound? The silence before the lights go green.
Full blast.
Downshifting from full speed. When I rev up my engine to its absolute limit. Too close to cool. Cheering on the podium.
Be aware.
It's gonna be loud.
Welcome to DTM for 2016. Here we go. It's Hockenheim and it's qualifying for race 1 in the sunshine. Boy, the weather conditions are perfect and, well, the seemingly all too quickly closed season is over and it's all about to count once again as we get qualifying underway for race number 1. And Nico Müller then in car number 51 with a new livery this year was very, very quick in the free practice session earlier today. There's Robert Wickens then, final stages of preparation for him. And in a press conference yesterday, listening to Gary Paffett talking about the new Mercedes car that they're using this year, that some of the aero parts didn't fit this new body shell quite as well as they would have liked. And therefore, is that going to perhaps compromise their early efforts in season 2016? One of the former champions, one of 8 former champions on the grid is Martin Tomczyk in the BMW M4. All of the manufacturers' cars look fantastic, but it is only Mercedes-Benz that come into 2016 with a new body shell, a new style, a new car. So the number 17 of Miguel Molina in the Audi RS5 car. The focus and concentration there. And Maximilian Goertz, who had an off during practice yesterday in car number 84. So Maximilian Goertz then, the Mercedes drivers in the new C63 DTM car, which looks and sounds absolutely awesome. Now, that's a livery that you could have associated last year with Tom Blomqvist, but this year it's Antonio Felix da Costa, who sticks with the number 13, Antonio Felix da Costa. And there, a man that has received a great deal of pre-event publicity going into this start of the season, Jamie Green, the Hoffman Group Audi, and Jamie Green, who came very, very close to the championship last year. Started very well, ended very well, but the middle part of the season didn't go his way, and that's what cost him dearly. And Jamie Green, well, hoping for success in 2016. Incidentally, congratulations to Jamie and his family on the birth of another child. Alongside me is Chris Hartley. And Timo Glock we're looking at now. In points during free practice, he was very quick as well.
Yes, indeed. Yeah, I mean, again, in DTM, you've kind of got 24 drivers that look like you could all get on pole position. Absolutely. And look like they could all win races. I think it was Antonio Felix da Costa said earlier in the week, it's the only championship when somebody can finish last on Saturday and then win the race on Sunday. And last year we had 13 different winners in the races, and I see no reason why it's going to be any different this year. In terms of the driver entry, it's very, very similar to last year. Not that much change. Of course, we've lost Pascal Wehrlein because he's done rather well and off to race in Formula 1 with Manor, and certainly doing a very good job so far in a car which is probably should be at the back of the field all the time. He keeps getting it up into the midfield, and it's the driver who's taken the most places gained in opening laps of races so far. So he's doing a really good job, and he is coming in his place is Esteban Ocon, who is an ex-European Formula 3 champion and the current GP3 champion. But other than that, it's a very consistent field compared to what we had last year, although nobody switched manufacturers, but there are 8 drivers altogether who have switched teams.
Yes, and just to go back to Esteban Ocon, who was the reserve driver last year for Mercedes-Benz, he thought he was going to get a run out when Daniel Juncadella was ill, and actually Daniel Juncadella made a recovery, and Esteban Ocon's race debut didn't happen. But interestingly, Esteban Ocon, of course, from the FIA Formula 3 European Championship, reserve driver, moved up to a race seat now. And interestingly, who is the Mercedes reserve now? It's last year's FIA Formula 3 European Championship winner, Felix Rosenqvist. So there is a reason, isn't there? Everything sort of happens and falls into place here as the cars make their way out, and qualifying about to get underway in really, really hot conditions for race number 1.
Yeah, and a 20-minute session for this one. We also, I mean, in terms of the regulations and the cars, they are incredibly similar to last year. There's been a freeze on the technical regulations to try and keep costs down. So everything's very similar. The tyre compound is exactly the same tyre compound from Hankook that we had last year, although they are developing and testing a new tyre ready for next season. There's lots of consistency. There's a new shell, a new silhouette on the Mercedes car to replicate the new C-Type Coupe. But because there are so many restrictions in terms of what you can do to the car, the outside of the car looks very different, but lots of the components are standard, are the same as last year. And as you said, the trouble is trying to make the parts from the car and the aerodynamic parts fit this new bodywork. But actually, although Gary Paffett was perhaps a little bit downbeat at the conference yesterday, saying it was been a very, very tough winter, they look reasonably quick in the practice session. So they're certainly the brand, the manufacturer with, you know, the most unknown quantities here. Everybody else has got a base, got the data from last year to work from. Mercedes to a point starting from scratch again, but otherwise it's very consistent and gave us such great racing and qualifying last year that that's a good thing, I think, because we're going to get more of it this year.
Absolutely right. It's Mike Rockenfeller that we're watching at the moment then, and the number 99 driver Mike Rockenfeller then. He's one that retains his livery from last year. These are fantastic onboard shots, absolutely crystal clear that we can show you. And just ahead of Mike Rockenfeller is Esteban Ocon then. And Rocky has done 2 sectors, and he will give us the first time for us to be able to use as our benchmark to start. And looking at work inside that car. So Esteban Ocon then ahead of him, making his debut in DTM effectively this race weekend. And Mike Rockenfeller hard on the throttle now as he rounds the final turn and heads towards the timing line. And apologies for the language, but Mike Rockenfeller certainly not happy with Esteban Ocon in his way effectively. Christian Vittoris then is our first to go to the top of the chart with a 1:35.096. We're on board with Augusto Farfus. Gusto then in the BMW number 18. Augusto Farfus then, see from various onboard angles there, and the brilliant graphics that we can bring you on the right-hand side shows you exactly what gear is in, the speed. Oh, absolutely down through the gearbox second. Down to 91 kilometers per hour as he took that turn. Christian Vittoris a 1:05.763 through that sector, and well, Augusto Farfus with a 1:05.705. Vittoris is 1:35.096 is the overall time that is currently at the top of the chart, but we're expecting that to, over the next 16 minutes or just under, to come tumbling down.
So the Brazilian Augusto Farfus pushing on in the BMW. BMW, the Manufacturers' Championship winners last year, very narrowly. He's got 602 points. Audi got 595. But the Audi was very often the quickest car, wasn't it? But they didn't win the title. They didn't win the driver's title either, because Pascal Wehrlein won that for Mercedes. So a real effort from Audi this year to try and go for all of the titles, which is one of the reasons why they put Matthias Ekstrom and Eduardo Matara together in the same team this year with Abt Sportsline. As you see a moment there, running a little bit deep through the corner, and that's the Mercedes of Gary Paffett, who was looking pretty handy in the free practice session about an hour and a half ago, wasn't he? Looks like he's pretty rapid, but you just can never tell from those free practice sessions. You don't know who's on a light setting, who's on a race setting. what's going on with fuel loads, tyre pressures, whether they're just testing the car or really pushing. So hard to tell until we get to this point of the weekend who's actually going to be really pushing for the pole positions.
Split 1, 3 tenths, split 2, 2 tenths, split 3. We are.
So live team radio then, team talking to Esteban Ocon. And whilst that's going on, we're watching the number 31 car of Tom Blomqvist. And it's Jamie Green that is quickest at the moment with a 1:34.325. We saw him in a press conference yesterday, and I mentioned the pre-event publicity that he's received, certainly in the UK. And he's got to come into this as one of the favourites, hasn't he, for 2016?
Yeah, absolutely. Very close runner-up last year. The most winning driver last year as well, wasn't he? He took 4 race wins. And what a start he had to the season. He won 3 out of the first 4 races. But then, of course, the performance weights, the success balance came in, slowed them down. They had a couple of weekends where they struggled for pace and didn't get the setup right in wet conditions. And the race that he said was that really the critical one for the championship was at Spielberg, the Red Bull Ring. He was winning the race and then had a gearbox failure. Yeah. He lost by 19 points. He lost 25 points that day with just that one race. So really tough middle part of the season. But then the end of the season here at Hockenheim, he took another win and a second place finish. So he means to hit the ground running this year, doesn't he?
Yes, hampered by that performance weight, which changes for this year. And when you have a spare few hours, we'll try and explain it to you, but we will get to that, I promise you. But Gary Paffett goes quickest. Paffett goes fastest at 1:34.302. So it's 2 Brits at the top. Look, Gary Paffett P1, Jamie Green P2. And, well, as we watch Matthias Ekstrom absolutely fighting with that Audi, for all of Gary's downbeat demeanour in the press conference in terms of how tough a winter it's been, at the moment they're topping the charts, aren't they? A 1:34.302 from Gary Paffett, who has just been eclipsed by his Mercedes driver Robert Wickens with a 1:34.105. What have we got left in this session? Just under 13 minutes.
Yeah, it flies by, doesn't it? So Wickens fastest, Paffett second at the moment. Jamie Green is third for Audi. Eduardo Matara is fourth for Audi. Timo Glock for BMW going well in 5th place. Paul de Resta, the former champion, the 09 champion, an ex-F1 racer, of course, is there in 6th place. So that's the top 6 as it stands. Ekstrom is just going to be busy this weekend because he's also taking part in the World Rallycross Championship, which is also taking place here at Hockenheim this weekend. So he's driving 2 types of cars, both of them very successfully, no doubt, Nicky. And the driver who was, again, well up there in the championship last year in 3rd place is, well, he's evergreen, isn't he? He's always bank on being up there at the front somewhere. It's not a good lap, personal best in the first 2 sectors. I'm not sure it's going to be front row of the grid material. To go on board with Esteban Ocon, he comes back into the pits, his first qualifying session in DTM. Because he was the champion in 2014 in the FIA European Formula 3 Championship, beating Tom Blomqvist, who got to DTM a year earlier than him, didn't he? And they both beat that chap, what was his name? Max Verstappen, who's done quite well for himself, hasn't he?
Right, Esteban Ocon then. It's not too shabby a qualifying. It's P9 at the moment. We saw him coming into the pit lane. And this is Matthias Ekstrom once again. We stay on board with now this man, really surprised during free practice this morning. Nico Müller in the Audi, who's wearing the Playboy livery now. And Nico Müller goes to P2 with a 1:34.286 for Nico Müller. So it's Mercedes, Audi, Mercedes, Audi, Audi before we get the best BMW, which is the veteran, if I may be so bold, Timo Glock, to his P6.
Yeah, and somebody else that switched teams still with BMW. Timo Glock, though, looking pretty solid all weekend so far. Another veteran, Timo Scheiner there, a former champion, double champion, who is back for another season. And Timo, very disappointing year for him last year, but such a nice chap, such a great driver as well. We hope he can get the sort of results that he's more used to having and pushing on in this session, no doubt, to try and achieve that. Wickens fastest at the moment. Muller going great guns in 2nd. If he stays there, he's never been on the front row of the grid before. His best ever qualifying position is 3rd, Nico Müller. So he's on for a really good
Look
run
at that,
here.
sector 1.
That's 20.399. That's a really tidy first sector for Nico Müller.
Not quite so good through sector 2, 44.886. You're watching Nico Müller then, who is currently P2 with just over 10 minutes left to run in this qualifying for the first race of DTM for season 2016 here at Hockenheim. Harping on about the weather conditions, but it is very, very glorious here, and of course track temperature is very high. And Robert Wickens currently leads the session on a 1:34.105. But here comes Nico Müller then, who doesn't improve on his P2 position.
Improvement, sector 1, improvement, push. We miss half a second to Wickens, P13 at the moment.
So that's the team radio to Eki, Ekstrom. Müller with a good lap, still very good lap, but not quite there in terms of pole position. He's a 10th or so away from Robert Wickens' time. We've got the new digital displays in the rear quarter windows, which give at any time during the session the driver's position. So that's a new feature for this year. And when we look at DRS tomorrow come the races, that will also give us an indication not of how many they've used or whether they're actually using it at the moment, but that light goes from green to red. It will tell us that they have used all of their DRS up, because there are limitations this year, which we'll talk more about when we get to the race itself.
And there is the man that took it here at Hockenheim last year, won the championship, Pascal Wehrlein, now doing very well for himself in Formula One, and is I think has really proved just what an accomplished driver he is with what he's able to do with that Formula One car as well. And well, he certainly proved what he could do with the DTM car last year. And interestingly, you mentioned Jamie Green being the most winningest driver. But it was Pascal's consistency throughout the season, wasn't it? Always banking.
Yeah, I mean, 18 races, he won 2. He had 2 seconds and he had a 3rd, but they were his only visits to the podium. But when he wasn't on the podium, he was getting points. He was getting 5th and 6th and 7th and 8th, and it all added up. And what was it? Only two races last year where he didn't score points, and that was the difference in the end, wasn't it?
One of those, of course, is the famed Red Bull Ring, where he ended up in the gravel.
Yes.
So Robert Wickens then, 1:34.105. We've got under 8 minutes left. We'll give the full rundown for you, but you can see it on the left-hand side of your screen. Of course, it's Wickens, Müller, Paffett, Green, Mortara, Glock. There's Blomqvist, De Resta, Farfus, Esteban Ocon. His first qualifying for DTM is currently P10. It's Jugadea, Da Costa, Ekstrom, Gertz, Tomczyk, Molina, Scheider, Tombe, Wittmann, Rockefeller, Spengler, Vitoris, and Martin is P23, and we have 7.5 minutes of this qualifying session remaining here at Hockenheim. Some fantastic slow-mo shots, including there Bruno Spengler. And we mentioned right at the start of the program that Mercedes, and you can see there, have effectively a new body style for the car for this year, and it's resplendent in pink that you can see it now. Christian Vitoris adopting the same colour scheme that was Lucas Au's solely last year.
Yeah.
So Christian Vitoris, who is in that all pink livery, driving with car number 8. I have to say, I think the body style and shape of this car looks absolutely phenomenal. So Christian Vitoris currently P22 with some work to do, but fear not, sure it will be done in the remaining 6.5 minutes in this qualifying session for race number 1, which comes up a little bit later today.
And as Dave said, without going into too much detail, because it is very complicated, the new performance weight system is not based on race results anymore, but what happens in qualifying. So it's the qualifying times for the leading driver of each brand, which would determine whether teams and drivers from that same brand either gain performance weight or lose performance weight. And it's to do with not the actual fastest lap of the fastest driver, but their theoretical fastest lap. So if you added their fastest first sector to their fastest second and fastest third sectors together from all of their laps in qualifying, and then depending on the leading driver from the second best brand, whether they're within 0.1% or 0.2% of that time, will affect the scenario. And there are 6 different scenarios, so it's very complicated, but the idea is that it's really a reflection of the speed of the cars in qualifying rather than your race results. Yes. So they are trying to equalise things out, because some people weren't happy with the system last year. And you could argue at times BMW struggled for pace, but they ended up winning the Manufacturers' Championship.
Well, you mentioned that, and BMW have been gifted the opportunity to start lighter this year to try and bring them closer, haven't they?
Yeah, because there's this freeze on technical regulations. Well, the problem is if you've got a car which isn't quite as quick as the others, what can you do to develop that car? You can look at the finite detail, but you can't make massive changes to it. So to try and keep things even, they've given BMW a lighter base weight, 5 kilograms lighter than the others, and they've allowed them to make some tweaks to the size of the rear wing as well to try and bring them into play. Bruno Spengler with a good lap there, former champion, up into the top 6 with his first flying lap of the session.
So with under 5 minutes left to run, it's Wickens with a 1:34.105. Here comes Christian Vittoris, who's improved his position from P22 just a couple of moments ago up to P9. That benchmark 1:34.105, Robert Wickens' time, which is the fastest so far. And Christian Vittoris now goes to P2 with a 1:34.149. So it's Mercedes, Audi, Mercedes, you know, Bruno Spengler, P7, the best BMW.
And save fuel.
This is the one session where we'll get a real feel of out-and-out pace of all the cars before performance weight comes in, because it's immediately after qualifying that the ballast will be added on, and that will be carried into the first race and the next qualifying session, and then it will change, 16 times during the course of the year. So this is the one real session that's unaltered by performance weight. Rocky there going second quickest. So Robert Wickens for Mercedes is fastest, but Mike Rockenfeller now goes second fastest in the Phoenix Audi. And then third fastest, Christian Vittoris is going rather well as well for the Buka Motorsport entry in his Mercedes. Müller is down to fourth. Pavitt going well in fifth. Jamie Green, who was last year's best qualifier on average, has gone into the pits, but he's sixth at the moment.
This is Timo Glock then, who is currently P10 in the all-yellow BMW. 1:05.195, best time from Robert Wickens. Timo Glock then 20.4 through Sector 1. Certainly records in Sector 2, but absolutely pushing as hard as he can, Timo Glock. P2 was in the press conference yesterday alongside Gary Pavitt and Jamie Green, one driver representative from each of the brands in the DTM. And Timo Glock then about to complete this lap. Will it be an improvement on his P10 time? No, 1:34.372 for Timo Glock, so it's Wickens, Rockenfeller.
Box, Timo Box. At the moment we are P10, Bruno is P7.
So team radio.
Okay, I did one mistake in the last 2 corners, sorry. I was a fence up and I had like a moment to get into 60.
So Glock could have gone quicker there.
Yeah, he had a mistake.
But said sorry for making a mistake. Edo Mortara is going to improve here, isn't it? It's certainly his best lap of the session. Goes pole, fantastic. He didn't set the fastest sector anywhere, did he? But he was a good all-round lap from Edo to go onto provisional pole. And we've got just 2 minutes to go, Dave.
Yeah, it all gets very, very tight towards the end, doesn't it? But it's Mortara, Wickens, Rockenfeller, Vittoris, Müller, Molliner, the top 6 at the moment. We have under 2 minutes left to run. So there is the Mercedes of Daniel Juncadella. Here's Jamie Green then. Jamie Green at the moment is P8. Robert Wickens is back out again. And we go on board with Esteban Ocon then, who is currently down there P16. So Esteban Ocon then will start a lap now. 1:34.409 is P13 for Esteban Ocon. And these fantastic crystal clear onboard images that we're able to bring you through this qualifying session for DTM for race 1. Here's Jamie Green then, a 20.5 through Sector 1. Jamie Green then one of the firm favourites following his fine performance last year. One of the firm favourites for the championship potentially this year. Rather underplayed his favouritism during the press conference yesterday, but doubtless will be gunning for it. He's got traffic ahead of him though, hasn't he?
Yeah, it looks glued though as he goes through Sachs curve.
Traffic have to back off.
No, having to back off because of the traffic, which he would have caught in that last corner. Yeah, visited it.
We only have 1 more lap.
Ah.
So on to what will be the last lap of his session. 18 seconds to go. Green goes through. It's looking pretty handy up until that point.
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
The rest with a big improvement. Leap forward into 5th place from the middle of the pack. Nico Müller goes fastest third sector of anybody. Very, very good second half of the lap, that was.
And what was also good was the team had made sure that Müller was out with clear circuit.
Absolutely.
Currently P1, 2/10 off P2.
So team radio there, and we just saw Hans-Jürgen Abt.
Just left on yellow, just left.
Copy, box.
So Maximilian Goertz that we're on board with now. And Maximilian Goertz down there, P20 at the moment. Now this is the non-compromised lap from Jamie Green, and interestingly, Sector 1 not as good for him this time around. It's always the way, isn't it?
Absolutely. So that'll be a frustration to him. And yeah, it's tumbled down to 11th place now. Incidentally, we've only got 23 cars rather than 24 because Lucas Auer had a big crash, didn't he, in free practice earlier, and they've not got that car fixed in time for qualifying. Flag is now out though, so last chance for everybody to improve. Personal best for Jamie Green in the middle sector, and I think he's got a clear run through the last turn. Yes, he has. So he's not going to be right at the front, but he might just improve here and gain a few places up the grid, which is going to be absolutely critical for last year's runner-up.
So here is Jamie Green then. Takes the checkered flag and improves from P11 to P4. He'd be well happy with that, I would think, given that the penultimate lap was really, really compromised for him. He had to pull that one out of the bag, really, didn't he?
It was only the middle sector that it was a PB as well.
Jamie, slow in lap.
But Nico Müller is the man that's going to be starting for the first time in his career on pole position.
It's Müller, Mortara, Wickens, you.
So there is Hans-Jürgen Abt.
Well, of all the names that were being bandied around for potential pole position sitters today, I'm not sure Nico Müller was one that cropped up very often, was it?
No.
Well, that's the beauty of DTM, though, isn't it? As we said at the start of the show, they can all do it. It's such a high level, isn't it? I mean, the quality is very deep throughout the course of the whole field, isn't there? There aren't that many drivers that you wouldn't back to get on a podium or get a race win.
And Nico being congratulated there.
That's nice to see, isn't it? Edo Mortara first over to congratulate him on his maiden pole. 1 minute 33.8, and by a good margin in
and an unusual margin.
Yeah, in DTM,
never normally that great.
0.3 of a second probably covers 6, 8, 10 drivers normally. Some circuits it covers the whole lot of them. But here, 0.3 quicker than Edo Mortara, second fastest. Robert Wickens with a 134.105 was only 0.04 of a second away from the front row of the grid.
So here the order then for you: Nico Müller, Eduardo Mortara, P2, Robert Wickens. Then it was Jamie Green, Mike Rockefeller, Christian Vittorius, Paul Di Resta, Miguel Molina, then P8 with Matthias Ekstrom, P9, Marco Wittmann, 10, Gary Pafford, 11, Esteban Ocon in his first qualifying P12. Then we saw Spengler, Junkadea, Farfus, Glock, Blomqvist, Timo Scheider, Goertz, Felix da Costa, Martin Tomczyk, and Adrian Tombe.
Struggling, yeah. And
Lucas Auer not making an appearance, as Chris said. His car damaged earlier and was not able to be repaired in time for him to take part in qualifying. So the congratulations continue in the weighing area.
And you see how close it was for second as well. 134.101 for Mortara, 134.105 for Wickens, 134.106 for Green. So 3 drivers, second, third and fourth, were covered by 0.05 of a second, which is more like it. And looking at the gap that Müller had as well, that is way above, more than 0.2% quicker than the fastest driver from the next best brand. So that is going to affect the weight of the Audis. That is a scenario where, thanks to his performance, all the Audi drivers are now going to get some weight added, and the others will have some taken away. But more about that when we get to the race later on today.
We take some slow-mos to the top 3 then. Robert Wickens with his 134.105 P3. Then it's Eduardo Mortara with the 134.101. And these super slow-mos gave Eduardo Mortara P2. And an extraordinary performance from this man, Nico Müller. With the new livery for this season, his Playboy Audi RS5 DTM propelling him to P1 on the grid with a 1:33. The only sub 1:34 time came from Nico Müller, and Mr. Abt was pretty happy too.
Yeah, with his new driver. Müller was with the Rosberg team last year, still with an Audi, but now with a new team. And it's clicked very nicely indeed for him, so he'll be looking for his first win, or at least first podium, come the race later on today. Great crowd here, isn't there, this weekend with the weather? First round, everybody's itching to go, aren't they?
You bet.
For DTM, yeah. Most championships, international championships have already started. We have to wait for DTM, but it's always worth the wait, isn't it? It was a really close qualifying session. I think Mike Rockenfeller will be pretty pleased with 5th place as well, won't he?
Yeah.
Christian Vittoris, who was struggling for the first half of qualifying, pops up in 6th place in the end.
Yes, and you know, from what we see, we've got Audi, Mercedes, Audi, Mercedes. Just looking for the first BMW there.
Wittmann, isn't it? Okay, Wittmann. Yeah, 2014 champion in 10th place, and he won BMW in the top 10, despite being a bit lighter than all the other cars.
So Eduardo Mortara then, we can see. And the first race of the DTM season gets underway this afternoon, live here from Hockenheim. That's what the qualifying session was all about, that we've just enjoyed. It's set in the grid. And there is the Bruno Spengler car.
13th place. It's not where he used to being at all, is it, Bruno Spengler? So, Dave, Nico Müller, the driver in his 3rd season, he finished 20th in the championship last year, 19th the year before. He's on pole position at the start of this season. It's all turned on its head.
And that does happen, doesn't it? You know, you made the point that, you know, at the start of our program today, you know, how very, very close it is with the entire grid of DTM drivers.
That was car control, wasn't it?
Push that to the limit.
From Whitman, yeah.
Yeah, so very close, and the grid is utterly littered with talent, isn't it? You know, and perhaps we shouldn't be as surprised as we are to see Nico Müller on pole, but going on what he's achieved in the past couple of years, then probably neither you nor I would have come into this commentary booth and said it's going to be Müller for pole, would we, necessarily?
I don't think so, no.
Although his free practice pace did elude.
It was quick in free practice, yeah, you're right. Esteban Ocon with a decent start as well, the only rookie out there. 12th, bang in the middle, not too bad.
Here comes the grid in full for you then for race number 1 of 2016. It's Nico Müller celebrating his first pole position. He has Eduardo Mortara alongside him.
Nothing to choose between the next two. Robert Wickens will line up 3rd, only 1,000th slower than him. Jamie Green will line up 4th.
Then we get to see Mike Rockenfeller and Christian Vittoris, who will be going from P5 and P6.
The 4th row of the grid for this afternoon's race, Paul de Resta, the former champion, and Miguel Molina.
To the 5th row we go, where we find Matthias Ekström and Marco Wittmann.
And then on the 6th row of the grid for the first race of the season, Gary Paffett and newcomer Esteban Ocon.
He'll be well pleased with that qualifying. Esteban Ocon and Bruno Spengler and Daniel Juncadella are on the next row from P13 and 14.
The 8th row of the grid then, Augusto Farfus in the BMW and Timo Glock in his Deutsche Post BMW.
Then we see Tom Blomqvist and Timo Scheider.
To complete the top 20 then, on the 10th row of the grid, Maximilian Gotz had a crash yesterday in rollout, and Felix da Costa.
Then it's Maxime Martin and Martin Tomczyk going from P21 and P22.
And Adrien Tombe will line up 23rd. Lucas Auer, if they get the car fixed, will line up 24th after missing qualifying after this morning's crash in free practice.
So super slow-mo of master at work here, Nico Müller. And as I say, he alluded to the pace during free practice. Certainly delivered it during qualifying, and looks very, very well satisfied with his performance, and so he should. So it'll be Nico Müller on pole position from the race this afternoon. So there we have it, qualifying done and dusted from Chris and myself. Make sure you join us for the race this afternoon. It's going to be as hot as the weather.